So I showed you this image of Simpson, O.J. Simpson. Here's another image. This is a picture, I believe it was taken in Haiti after an earthquake. I think there was a large earthquake that killed tens of thousands of people. And this is a picture of a woman. This is her home. This is kind of outside of it, kind of in the courtyard of her, like a house or whatever. And this is showing kind of stuff all over. You know, she looks dirty. And this picture came through. It was up for a journalism award in Europe. There was a Danish photographer who had taken this picture. He submitted it, and he was being nominated. They were considering him for a fairly prestigious award. But before they were prepared to give it to him, they wanted to see the raw image. What did this come from? What did this look like? You know, they thought it looked like maybe he had enhanced the color some, as all photographers usually will play with the color and lighting a little bit just to adjust it and make sure it looks its best. But they wanted to see what it looked like. Well, what they did is they said, send us the raw image. So he sent him the raw image, and he sends it, and this is what the image had originally looked like. So this is what it originally looked like. This is what he submitted, or what he was trying to get an award on. This does not look like a stellar photo. This just looks like a lady standing in a courtyard of a house, you know, stuff strewn about, nothing particular. But he had manipulated this to such a degree. I mean, he makes her shirt look dirty. There's all these dark shadows. Everything looks very much a mist. The clouds look, you know, kind of dark. And, you know, and what happened is after they saw this original image, they said, this is just excessive. You cannot manipulate the image to this level and be considered to be an ethical journalist. And so he ended up not winning the award, and actually became kind of a little bit of a question about his ethics. So what happens here is, at a point where you're trying to show reality, when you're trying to create a mood, when you're trying to do other things, you are beginning to cross line. Is it okay to change a photo a little bit in order to better represent reality? Sure, most reporters, most photographers, most journalists will say that's okay. But when you begin to do it in order to create mood or to change an attitude, then you're beginning to overstep the bounds. So if we come here, there's a website here. Actually, that image, I was trying to remember where the guy was from. I looked that back up, and I found this website with that photographer on it. And one of the things is I mean, just sort of as an example of this, I mean, you know, you can take, like, here's a picture on our left of like a guy, you know, in repose or something. You know, he's sitting there. He's not repose. He's in recline, I guess, with, you know, a statue of Jesus and curtains behind. And what they've done is they've shown how the photographer divided up this section and adjusted the lighting by 2, and here he adjusted it by a different amount, and here a different, and he divided it up in order to better create it. Now, by doing this a little bit different, he put a little bit more focus. There's a little bit of a spiritualism, you know, like you know, kind of something there. And so there is a little bit of manipulation, but at the same time, this is being done to better show what's behind him. Now, there might be a little bit of a question because they're creating a little bit of a glow around this area, and that might be trying to create a mood. But at least, for the most part, they're trying to get stuff that when the raw image doesn't show it. And a lot of times with digital photography, if you adjust the lighting and the color, you oftentimes will find there's a lot more to that image, but the light is so off balance that it's washing out everything. And if you can just pull in the lighting a little bit, you can get a better image. Here's another example. In this case, there's a person here. All this light from the window is washing the person out, but by adjusting the lighting, you're able to get a better picture of the person. But the people become very dark. And so what happens is by framing it, by taking and dividing up this into segments and adjusting the light on this section, suddenly you can see the person, but you can also see their faces, and you get a more accurate representation of reality. And so in that case, it may not be bad. Here's an early picture, and they slowly manipulate so you can get the full use of the color. Here's a picture of a negative from a house. This is what it would look like, and then they adjust the color so you can get an even more bright color. And so those are all examples of that. Where does it cross the line? Well, it tends to cross the line when you're changing the mood of the photo. And, you know, here's just some more. There's a person sitting there. They adjust it. You know, I don't know. Is that changing the mood, or is that showing it better? You know, to a certain degree, I mean, this is a more stylistically pretty picture, but at what point does it cross the line? So you can kind of see how they're changing the lighting. all very easy to do. Now they've darkened up the helicopter, and so you get a very different idea of a picture. Here, they brought up the rainbow. I mean, so you can kind of see how these images all show it in different ways. But what happens is that creates that image, that ability. So another policy within journalism is the idea that you don't get involved in the story. Your job is to be there to represent reality. And this is true as a reporter, as a writer, as well as a photographer, as a video person. Your job is to tell the story. This picture here is an example of a photographer taking a picture and not getting involved in the story. What is this a picture of? Well, there was a reporter who was doing a story about urban poverty in Los Angeles. And the photographer went out to a place where they were covering this family, and they had been doing a story about this family and this little girl. I think she was 5 or 6, and they're doing a story about her. Maybe she's 4 or 5. I don't remember exactly, but a little girl, and they were doing a story about it. And what happened is the mother was working multiple jobs. She was a drug user and had other issues, but her mother was also HIV positive. And her mother had gone inside because her gums were bleeding. And so this is one of their neighbors who lived next door. And he decided he would help the little girl brush her teeth. So he grabbed the mother's toothbrush, which she may have just been using with her gums bleeding, who was HIV positive, and began to brush the little girl's teeth with the toothbrush. And so this is a very cute picture. It's a cute little girl. But when you realize the backstory, which the cut line told, you begin to realize that what's happening in this picture is this girl is possibly getting exposed to the HIV virus because she's using a toothbrush that could very well have the blood of her mother on it that's HIV infected, and it's going against her gum, which could very well get into her blood and cause her to have the HIV infection. And the photographer simply sat there and took the picture. He didn't stop it. He didn't say anything. He just took the picture. When this story came out, there was a lot of backlash against the publication that put it out, saying, I can't believe your photographer would be so cold and callous to do this and not to intervene, not to stop, not to do anything. And the basic response was, my job is not to get involved in the story. My job is to report and to take pictures. At the end of the day, as some justification for that action, what happened was, after this photo was taken, that several people saw a picture. This was a very moving picture, and a lot of people ended up really having a problem, and it led a lot of people to action. Hundreds of people wrote letters. Thousands of people gave money to charities that help. The state ended up seeing the picture and took this child and put it into care and was able to give it a better home. And so there was a lot of things that got done. And at the end of the day, if the photographer had stopped taking the picture and not taken this picture, this story probably would not have had the impact and not have had the same reaction as if it had not been taken. And so even though the photographer risked this child, the photographer's job was not to take care of that child. The photographer's job was to get the picture and tell the story. And at the end of the day, more people were probably benefited and helped by that than would have happened if he had just simply helped this one little girl. At the same time, I will have to say, if I were there, I would have probably said something. I might have taken my picture, but I probably would have said something. It's hard to sit there and say, well, I don't want to get involved. I'm just an objective third-party viewer. Yes, that's the way you should judge it. But at the same time, there is a point where one has to ask the question of, you're still a human, and this is still a little itty-bitty girl, and you're going to sit there and watch it. And that is a big, serious ethical issue. Where does the staying out of the story and simply documenting it end, and when does being a human and getting involved in it actually begin? Now, the next picture I'm going to show you is actually one of the first ones that becomes a little bit more of the questionable nature, and that's sort of this idea that you're just sort of photographers, you're there, you're not going to get involved, you're taking pictures, and there's a little bit, and so this is one that's going to show a body, and so I want to kind of forewarn you as a trigger warning, that this next image is a bunch of photographers taking a picture of a girl who is killed. This girl is like 14 or 15 in this image. And um, uh, she has been shot and killed by police in Haiti. This is after the earthquake in Haiti. And what happened was the little girl was stealing stuff from a store. She's 14 or 15 and was stealing like picture frames. And the police came or were called and they saw her running off with it and they shot and killed her. And so photographers saw this body lying there, realized it was a good photo, and they joined up and started taking pictures. And so here's these photographers here. They look kind of just cold and callous, all lined up, taking pictures. Nobody's covering up the body of a dead child. And it seems very cold, callous, and uncaring. But to a certain degree, that's what you do as a journalist. Your job is not to get involved in the story. Your job is to tell the story. And by being there and getting that picture, you are going to tell the story, and people are going to be concerned, and they're going to give aid, and they're going to send Marines, and they're going to help out in this situation. All you can do in this situation is cover her body. But by taking this picture, you may, in fact, change the world. And so that's what it is there's a little bit of your job is to do your job, and other people will do their job, and you cannot get involved in the story. Just to show a couple other images of this is the picture that ended up coming out. But there were also some of the photographers who ended up capturing this image. You can see the blood and everything. Now, if you notice between these pictures, this one she's kind of holding the pictures, and in this one they're behind her and there's a blood trail. Is actually what happened was this happened, and there were refugees and people kind of looking for cover, and they were walking by. They saw the property that she had stolen, and people began to steal from her. They began to take the stuff and grab it and rip it out of her arms, and that's why the body is in a different position from picture to picture. And so you can complain that the photographers were uncaring or didn't get involved, but at the same time, when you look at it, you begin to realize that the reason that this very situation is one in which nobody cared, not even these other people who were there just walking by. They were more interested in taking her possessions than covering up or rendering aid or trying to, find the family of a 14, 15-year-old girl who is dead in the middle of the road. And that speaks to the situation more than anything. I'm going to stop it here because we need to, stop it. So I'm going to move up here just a random image. That way we're not ending on anything negative if you want to look back at your screen.